Listen, you don't buy a house in America to pay it off. You buy a house in America for financial sustainability.
The first thing first is, if you're just someone who just doesn't like the idea of debt,
Of basically.
right? Like that, then that home ownership in diaspora dream is really
It's
not
not for you.
in that
Yeah.
regard, right? The other thing is the market, right? A lot of the people that bought property 2 years ago, like right in the middle of COVID when everything was up,
Mm-hmm.
you try to sell that same property today, you're
Yeah.
either going to break even or actually lose money on that property.
You guys don't know that owning a house in America is a very big financial backup. You get the point now.
It's also a very big financial risk.
Yeah.
Like it said, it's a very big financial backup, which is true.
Yeah.
But it's also a very big financial risk, right? And again, you have to understand the different dynamics between those two.
Hello, Nigerians in the diaspora. This video is for you. For as many of you as have been thinking of investing in Nigeria, have invested in Nigeria, and are on the fence on whether to make that first investment in Nigeria or in the country where you are, whether it's in the US, whether it's in Canada, whether it's in the UK, whether it's in the other parts of Europe or the UAE. This video is for you. And I'm going to be joined today by Tunde. Thank you so much. Thank you, Tunde, for joining today.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm fine. So, should we jump into this video?
Yeah, let's get straight to it, man.
Let's get to it.
Listen, you don't buy a house in America to pay it off. You buy a house in America for financial sustainability for the rainy days. Some of you are so scared that I can't buy a house in America that will pay for 30 years. I can't buy a house in America because I don't own anything in America. I'm going to my country to go and build my house. A country you don't live in. You live in America. Even if you build a renting house in your country.
Let me stop there very quickly. The guy is coming up hot. It's coming up hot. It's touching on a couple of things, right?
Yeah.
I think what first thing first for me is there's a couple of reasons. There are a couple of reasons why people invest or why people choose to, buy properties or want to buy property in Nigeria, right? And obviously we'll still kind of go through the video to see the things that it touches on. But it made a point about, some people are still living in the non-21st century mindset of, not wanting to buy a property in America, and you're not buying a property to pay it off, and what happens if I get a loan that I can't afford and things like that. I think one, you have to understand why you're buying a property, right? Or even why you're buying a property in Nigeria, right? Like, I think there are two different kind of investors. There are people that invest for the sentimental value of it. And honestly, if you're someone who's just buying a property in Nigeria, because obviously there's a strong tie to Nigeria, because that's where you're from, and that is home at the end of the day. There's nothing this person is gonna see on these videos that's going to convince you or should convince you.
True.
Just purchase it and then buy that property, because there's a sense of fulfillment or even purpose.
Yeah, that's how you. Yeah,
exactly. That's attached to that. But if you're someone who is buying for the sole purpose of looking for profit and wanting to buy something that you can either flip or sell at a later date for profit, right? Then I think this conversations that we're about to get into from this video could definitely be insightful. What do you think so far, Uche?
Yeah, I think what I want to ask you, you're an investor in the US and Canada and also in Nigeria. Don't people have valid fears for not wanting to invest at the first place in the US or in the West? Because, like, the risk of being foreclosed, and sometimes maybe the fact that they don't see themselves in that country for another 30 years. They don't see themselves in that country for that long, however it's going to take to pay off. And also maybe just the high mortgage that it's going to probably, depending on where you are, most people will want to get like a one bedroom. A one bedroom wouldn't make any sense. Could you afford the mortgage for probably 2-3 bedroom? And for how long can you afford it? Now have to talk about the thing of, okay, is it a dual earning household? Is it the man and the woman? Are they bringing their two incomes together? These are the things that people look at and they say, okay, let me just carry my bulk money and go to Nigeria and invest. Do you think it's a valid fear for people to actually have and say, okay, no, I'm not going to get a mortgage in for the first investment. I'm not going to get a mortgage in this country. I'm going to maybe wait till I'm earning more to be able to pay off my mortgage, monthly mortgage payments. Yeah,
good question, Uche. I think there's different strokes for different people, right? In a sense where would there always be a risk of foreclosure on properties if you bought it in America or Canada? Yes, right? Because anything could happen, right? Anything could happen. People could lose their jobs, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Now, I will say that there are products in the market, like insurance products, that can cover you in the case where you're absolutely not able to pay your mortgage, right? So, whether that's due to, an accident, you're no longer able to work, whatever the case may be, there are some products or insurance out there that will protect you as a homeowner. Should you not be able to afford your mortgage or should your mortgage go to default. So, there will always be those kind of risks when it comes to, honestly, just investment period. And more specifically, when you're taking on a loan to purchase a property, that does come with some level of risk. But again, there are things that you can do to minimize those risks. What I will say is, a lot of time when people are talking about this kind of investment or idea of, hey, just buy a property in America, and it's like a financial stability thing, whatever the case may be. What they don't say is the process of actually getting a property in America or Canada, right? First of all, you need to make sure you have really good credit, right? That's kind of like the foundation of even borrowing any kind of loan. Getting really good credit is another way of saying you need to be really good at taking other debts and paying back those other debts, right? So the first thing first is, if you're just someone who just doesn't like the idea of debt, right? Like that, then that home ownership in diaspora dream is really
not for you
in that account, right? Because it really starts from taking on debts and then showing an history of being able to pay back those other debts, right? And then using that to build your credit, so that then you're able to go and use that credit to purchase properties in this part of the world. So that's step number one. And then obviously coming up with minimum of 5% to pay or buy that property. I think in Toronto more specifically, the average price of a house in Toronto is probably upwards of $800,000, right? Yeah. So if you're looking at a minimum of 5% to get that property, then you're looking at what, 80K, something to that extent.
40K.
Or 40K rather, right? You're looking at 40K minimum. Now, here's the other aspect of it. When you're doing less than 20% down payment on your property, there's a default mortgage insurance that's going to now get added on top of the price of the property. So let's say you're getting the property for 800,000, right? And you're only doing anything less than 20% down payment.
20%.
They're then going to add another maybe 20K, 30K, 40K default insurance on top of that property, right? So again, that's another thing that you need to be mindful of. Now, the other thing is the market, right? A lot of the people that bought property 2 years ago, like right in the middle of COVID, when everything was up, if you try to sell that same property today, you're either going to break even or actually lose money on that property. Because what we've seen is over the past 2 years or a year and a half, interest rates has went up. So a lot of buyers are not looking to get into the market right now, right? So if you find yourself in a situation where there's financial difficulties for whatever reason, you can't pay your mortgage, you don't have the right protection, and you want to sell that property thinking you'll make a profit in the market right now, you're probably going to not make that profit, right? So there is risk that's gonna come with you buying a property here in Canada and America. The other thing that I'll just say lastly before we get to the video is, before you come up with a 40,000 down payment, right? Let's say you even want to buy a property. Before you come up with a 5% down payment, there are things that you can do, and there are other places that you can invest in to start to help you come up with that fund and come up with that money. And one of that investment strategy could include land banking in Nigeria. Right? Because if you think about it, for 4,000, 5,000 USD, right? You might be able to buy a plot of land in somewhere in Nigeria, right? And if you do that, right? If you do that for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, however the case may be, and then flip that property or flip that land, right? You're making profit on that $4,000 when you've invested in that land, right? So why you wait for you to rack up that 40,000 USD or that 50,000 USD that you're going to use for a down payment? Don't just wait there and sit on your money, because as inflation goes up, you're actually going to be losing value on that money.
And that money in the bank,
There are other, obviously, investment options that you can explore, such as stock, crypto, whatever the case may be. And these all come with their own volatile, risk
situation,
and then situations, right? So again, you have to think holistically of why you want to purchase. Think about your strategy. And to me, I would definitely recommend doing land banking in Nigeria still, because that is an investment venue that for sure is going to, obviously nothing is guaranteed, but there's definitely a high chances of it returning that ROI that you're looking for sure.
Like I really loved this show, because in life you need to spell everything out, and I don't like when people make blanket statements just like this man makes or had made. And I'm not blaming the guy in any way, but do you know, if, like, for an average person, do you know how many years it will take them to get to that 40K? Like you said, probably take them a couple months to raise 4K, 5K that they'll be able to put in to start to put an initial deposit in Nigeria. And one thing that you also mentioned is the fact that prices can actually crash. It can actually go below market value. But I don't think I've heard any time where there was a pricing crash in Nigeria, and where you say, houses that were selling 400 million in Lekki, they are now selling 200. It has never happened, and I think that's also another thing that gives people confidence in the fact, although most of the times your gains are being wiped away by inflation, devaluation, and what have you. But I think that's a story for another day. Okay, let's continue the video.
Let's keep going.
Your 1 year rent that you collect from that box house cannot pay your 1 month rent in America. Even if you take a loan from that box.
Sorry.
I think, before you say anything, I think one of the advices that people always give when you move is that stop stop in that calculation before you do anything. Because some people, before they even buy sweets, they say, if I change this money to naira, what will I get to naira? Don't do it.
Mhm.
If you don't want, like, don't do it. Like, it's too. You're comparing apples with oranges. They are like two different sort of comparisons. But anyways, I'll like you to have your go.
Yeah, no, you're right, right? Like, first of all, again, going to the example of getting a land in Nigeria, maybe a Ekpe as an example for $4,000, $3,000, right? There is nowhere in America that you're going to get a land for $4,000. It's just not going to happen, right? So when this guy is saying, get that property or that investment that you're going to make in Nigeria is not going to pay your 1 month's rent in America. It's one, what kind of investment are you making and what's your income?
Yeah.
Also, two, it keeps referencing houses in Nigeria as a box. It's like, oh, that box that you're going to buy. And honestly, that was why I started. That's why I started laughing.
It's so derogatory. And also, like, I think he was vacillating between two things, and like he didn't really say, is it owner occupied an investment property? So I think that's another thing that like he didn't really establish in this video, because it seemed to be like some people actually just want like something that they can retire to. When they are done there, they can actually retire to. So people now, they have things they can retire to. They have a place where they're looking for an investment property. So I think let's compare adequately what we're comparing. So are you going to say, should I get a house where I want to live in for God knows for the rest of my life in outside of the country, or should I get an investment property in my country after I've got my own house? So I think that's also something that it was not also putting into perspective. What do you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, it's understanding your goal and understanding what the end result or the ROI that you're looking for is, right? And I think that's why it's important to speak to people that have that diverse knowledge of different markets and different possibilities, right? I think one of the things that owning a home does offer, like we offer, is that exposure to these different markets where we can speak on, what it is that you're trying to achieve, and we can then come up with a clear plan to help you get there. So it's important, very important, for you to know what your end goal and the end result you're looking for is, and then making sure that the plan and the strategy you're putting behind that are all aligned and what
to end goal
towards what that end goal is, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
All right, let's go back.
Let's go.
House. You cannot use that money to solve any of your financial needs here in America. You guys don't know that owning a house in America is a very big financial backup. You get the point now.
It's also a very big financial risk. Like it said, it's a very big financial backup, which is true. Yeah. But it's also a very big financial risk, right? And again, you have to understand the different dynamics between those two.
Some of you will be like, yeah, what if you are sick and you cannot pay off that house again? You sell it. That is why you bought that. You sell it to solve your financial needs. You can sell it and move back to your country and build whatever dream house you want to build. You have nothing to lose when you buy a house in America.
Not true. That's just
true. I think you literally even said it. It depends on what. Is it a buyer's market at that point you want to sell, or is it a seller's market? Are we in a recession? Are we recovering from the recession? Is it a boom? Is it a bust? That actually has to be factored. And since it's not something that you planned, there's no way of even knowing whatever act of God or whatever happens at that time, so that you can actually authoritatively say, I'm able to sell this as a profit if something goes wrong.
100%, right? Like, we literally just went from a market of multiple offers on property and property selling above asking price in the middle of the pandemic to now. And back then, again, a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, properties would come on the market and within 5 to 10 days they're gone. And I'm talking about like gone, above asking price, all of that. Fast forward to today, and God forbid you find yourself in a financial crisis where you want to sell your property today. That house, if you need emergency fund and immediate funds, forget about it, because most houses today are sitting on the market for 60 days and above, right?
Wow.
So
That's
that
crazy.
multiple offers stages that we were 2 years ago, that's no longer, right? So even after sitting on the market for as long as it will sit on the market today,
Okay.
right? You're probably looking at a 1 offer, 2 offers maximum kind of situation, and you're just picking the best of 2 evils, which is most offers are probably gonna come on the
lowball you,
exactly, and they will lowball you because they understand the kind of market
the market,
that we're in today. So to say that you have nothing to lose is a very, very bold statement, right? Again, you can, right? It's that's a very, very bold. Again, you can play and be strategic with all of these things, but I'm not gonna just let him make that kind of.
You don't get to know that.
You can't just make that kind of statement.
And I think that's what like always bring to balancing in life before you make any decision. And lots of Nigerians on Twitter can be very toxic. Like they clown people. Oh, hold your money, go and. It's important to do that, but these are the nuances that people look to before they make the decisions that they are making. And people that are yet to make that decision should be aware of all of the variables and all of the things that could go wrong. We've not even talked about even. I think that will also even be a separate video if you actually went to do an investment property and you also took on debt. The fact that most of the laws, even from the UK to Canada to the US, I think maybe less of the US, but most of the laws right now, they protect the renter. And you can even get to a place where your tenant is defaulting and you are just walking around the clock trying to pay off the mortgage on that property. And the highest you will do is take that person. In fact, we're going to do another video on that. A particular case in Toronto, Canada, where this guy said he was literally not going to move out. What do you do in that situation? The market is bad. Your tenant is not paying you, so you're not able to pay the bank. You're working. You're deducted out to be able to pay, and you're not even getting anything back on it. So these are all of the things that people think about before you just rush and jump. And obviously you need to study the market a lot, and that will probably be in that next video. But yeah,
no, absolutely. And just one last thing on the topic of who you're taking advice from and things like that, right? It's, as I'm watching this video, he clearly has a clear bias for
just
not buying properties in Nigeria. Right from the moment he started calling houses in Nigeria a box and saying all these things, I'm like, okay, it clearly has a clear bias for not wanting to do that. And for me, the best people to learn from or take suggestions from, recommendations from, are people that have that experience in what they're talking about and able to hopefully give unbiased suggestions and recommendations.
That's fine. Yeah, 100%. Okay, let's jump back.
The problem is that you guys allow people from the 15th century to advise you. You that is now in 21st century. Things has changed. We are now in global economy. You get the point.
Did you pause it?
No, I didn't pause it. I think that's it.
Oh, that's the end? Okay.
That's the end.
All right. So with that being being what it is, what are some of your, I guess, final thoughts and and you know, things that comes to mind as you saw that video.
Yeah, I think we've covered the basic things that need to be said. And we are also not saying don't invest in the US, don't invest in Canada, don't invest in the UK. And we're also not saying don't invest in Nigeria or invest in Nigeria or whatever. But I think what this video just wants to do is a healthy balance, and the fact that also for those that would be in that position in a couple of years, you need to know why people are doing what they are doing, and you need to know the gamut, the wide expanse of every single variable that you need to consider before you make that move to invest, whether it's owner occupied, where you want to stay, if you plan to stay there, and then move beyond investing in where you want to stay to also investing in like in an investment property outside of the country. I had a client that actually reached me. He's a subscriber, and he told me that he's in Australia. I will probably have him on this show very soon. He actually has 6 houses in Australia, and he was also telling me how the government actually protects the renter and gives them up to 14 days before, like, they can actually owe you rent for 14 days before you can actually start to take action. And he has to work around the clock to be able to afford the mortgage for all of it. And he can't leave the country because of that. And so people need to tell the truth of it. But the truth of the matter is that, nothing good really comes that easy. And people need to probably, okay, I'm going to give myself the next 5-6 years to slug it out, work as hard as I can to get this investment property, even if not for the rental value, for the capital appreciation and the fact that I own it, and then move from there. So that is your own strategy. And with that, he's also hoping to flow from some of these properties to invest back in Nigeria. And we are working on something this summer for him to invest in Nigeria. So people should actually, have all of the info and have all of the knowledge before they take a move, and not just allow anybody that just has a phone and internet connection tell you how to run your life. No,
you're right, Uche. And I think just to kind of wrap up my thoughts, it kind of reminds me of a common debate on rent versus mortgage, right? Or rent versus buy, right? Should you rent or should you own? And the bottom line for me is I'm always on the side of owning a property and owning, where you live so far you can afford it. So on that note, I will say that if you're able to, owning a property where you live, right, is not a bad idea at all, right? So I don't want to just completely disregard what he's saying. I do think that he's making some very bold statements in his videos that's just not true, and sharing some information that's also not true. But I think to Uche's point, we're not saying don't invest where you are, but actually even quite the contrary. We're saying it's very possible for you to invest where you are, but part of the strategy to get to investing where you are could include investing in Nigeria first, right? And then the case of the client and the subscriber in Australia that you mentioned, right? In their cases, they actually started investing where they are, but also now realizing the potential of investing back home and capitalizing on some of the opportunities that's available back home as well, right? So holistically, what we're saying is going back to understanding what you're in it for, understanding what works best for you, also understanding, very important, your risk tolerance level, right?
Yeah.
And then researching, studying, talking to people who have the knowledge of the different markets, and then thinking about what's most compatible to you and also what's most compatible to your risk tolerance level, right? Anytime you want to do any kind of investment, if particularly you're working with like an institution, so like if you're working with like a financial planning institution, whatever the case may be, one of the first questions that they're going to ask you, or one of the series of questions that they're going to be asking you, is really trying to understand your risk tolerance level. And then based on that, then they can start giving you suggestions or recommendations on what's going to be compatible with that, right?
Yeah.
So you really need to study both markets. I don't think you should just watch his video and take his word for it. I also don't think you should just watch our video and just take our
Yeah.
do your own work, do your study, do your research, and understand
100%.
what based on both of those markets and based on what you find.
Yeah, 100%. And I think I'm going to leave with, there's something that you said on your last video about the era of the lazy investor is kind of over, all the world over. And people that come, because we rank for quite a couple of keywords, people that come on my DMs and say, help me, like I want to invest in real estate. And don't ever answer those people, because I realize that you don't even know what you want to do. You don't know if you want to invest in a rental property, buy land. That's so lazy. Do your preliminary research before you actually start talking to somebody. Know what you want to do and know how the person that you're contacting can actually play in that role. And at the end of the day, when you make your decision, you need to know that I'm the one that made the decision. That's why I don't have a very, very aggressive follow-up policy, because I want you to know that this is a decision I made. Yes, I got advice from a couple of people, but at the end of the day, this is a decision that I made and I'm comfortable with all of the information at my disposal. I was able to weigh and I made this decision. And that should be what it is. Because I know people blame realtors enough. Oh, this realtor, when something happens, the realtor has turned off their phone. But at the end of the day, the onus is on you, to make a decision, a wise decision, make a decision that favors you and that is the best for you and is best for your risk and your risk tolerant level.
I agree.
All right. Thank you all so much for watching. This was a short one. Yeah, we intend to have more and more people. So like if you're avid in the real estate industry and you also love this channel, message me, we can see how we can get you on the show and have more of these sort of balanced talks where we are also looking at from a more holistic perspective, not just Nigeria, looking at different markets, usually where Nigerians find themselves in, and how you can invest and also take advantage of these markets. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, as always, Tunde, for your valuable insights today. It was really, really helpful. The Odogu investor. Thank you so much for always coming. Thank you so much for always coming with the knowledge and coming with just that expertise, walking the talk, somebody that has done it and been there, done that, has the t-shirt. Thanks so much. Kindly like, share, subscribe, drop your comment. We'll see you at the very next video.
See you.